Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified. Here we will take up the news articles from The Hindu Delhi edition and discuss them as per the demands of UPSC Civil Services exam. The topics for today's discussion are listed on your screen. Let us begin our discussion. The first topic of today's discussion is based on this news which appeared at page number 7 in The Hindu. This topic is related to the employment generation which is required for the Indian economy. And the context is that Government of India has argued that unemployment is not a major concern due to the sufficient job creation in the economy. And they also attribute the lower population growth to the decreased need of employment generation. And on the other hand, critics argue that the number of individuals who are entering into the labor force is still substantial who are seeking the employment. This topic is relevant for General Studies Paper 3 under Economy section. And here you can see employment is directly mentioned under the syllabus. So this area becomes important for our discussion. And UPSC has previously asked many questions related to employment. As you can see, in 2014, UPSC asked about the demographic dividend. And in 2015, a question on the success of Skill India program was asked. And in 2022, UPSC asked that economic growth in the recent past has been led by increase in labor productivity. You need to explain the statement and suggest the growth pattern that will lead to creation of more jobs without compromising the labor productivity. All these questions are directly related to the issue of employment. Moreover, UPSC asked questions related to employment in prelims exam also. In 2019, a question was asked on Industrial Employment Central Rules of 2018. And similarly, in 2017, a question was asked on National Career Service. We get to know that the topic of employment is important for mains and prelims exam both. Today we are going to discuss the reasons behind the unemployment and a way forward which is required to create more jobs in the country. First of all, we will see how the employment is estimated in India. Government of India has launched PLFS, Periodic Labour Force Survey, in 2017 to get an estimation of job situation in the country. And this survey has two primary goals in the assessment of employment and unemployment. The first goal is it captures the fluctuations in labour force participation and employment status within a brief 3-month period, which focus exclusively on urban areas through current weekly status. And the second goal is to provide labor force estimation for both rural and urban areas by using usual status and current weekly status. Now let us try to understand what is this usual status and current weekly status approach, which is being used to estimate the employment and unemployment scenario in India. First of all, we will try to understand what is this usual status approach. This approach says that individuals are considered unemployed if they did not have a regular work for a significant period within 365 days before the survey was conducted. And this approach takes into account a longer time frame to determine the unemployment status. And the next one is weekly status approach. And the focus of this approach is that whether someone had any work or employment in the week before the survey was conducted. And if a person did not have any work during that week, they would be classified as unemployed according to this approach. And it focuses on a shorter time frame to determine if someone is currently without a job. So broadly, these are the two approaches which are being used to estimate the employment and unemployment status in India. Now we will see what the PLFS report of 2022 says. The first point here is India's unemployment rate has dropped to a 5-year low in 2021 to 2022 to 4%. So it is a positive sign for the economy. Further, the report says that the unemployment rate for rural women was 2.1%, which is lower than the rural men, which was 3.8%. And lastly, in urban areas, the unemployment rate for females was higher as compared to males. Try to include the data figures from authentic sources like PLFS report to bring authenticity in your answers. Now we will shift our focus to the reasons behind unemployment. And we will divide the factors under three headings: structural, policy level, and skill level. What are the structural factors behind unemployment? The first one is population growth. India has a large and rapidly growing population which results into increase in labor force, and it creates a situation in which the supply of labor force exceeds the available job opportunities, resulting into unemployment. And in this regard, you can mention the report of United Nations Population Fund, which says that India is going to be the most populous country by the middle of this year. The second point is dominance of agriculture sector. As we all know, a significant portion of population is engaged in agriculture sector, which is often characterized by low productivity and seasonal employment. And the data which you can quote from the NSO, around 42% of the labor force is engaged in agriculture sector. Hence, we need to shift the labor force from agri sector to the manufacturing sector, which is more labor intensive. The next point is unorganized sector. Ministry of Labor and Employment has said that around 90% of the labor force is engaged in informal or unorganized sector, and the presence of substantial informal sector leads to unstable and low wages job. And lastly, the urban rural divide. There exists an imbalance in employment opportunities between rural and urban areas. Rural areas face lack of industries and infrastructure, while on the other hand, urban areas suffer from inadequate infrastructure to accommodate the growing urban population. So these are the structural reasons behind unemployment in the country. Now we will see what are the policy level factors behind unemployment. The first one is industrial sector. India's industrial growth has been sluggish, resulting into fewer job opportunities. And the country needs policies that promote industrial development and entrepreneurship to generate employment. And in this regard, you can mention the data from Ministry of Finance, which says that industrial sector GVA is around 3.7% in the first half of financial year 2023. The second point is labor market regulation. In this regard, the stringent labor laws, such as those related to hiring and firing, can discourage formal job creation in small and medium enterprises, which limits the employment opportunities in different sectors. And one fact which you can quote here is that labor codes which government has brought in are still not implemented in the country. The last one is education and training. There is less focus on the vocational education which can provide employment opportunities in small scale industries. So there is a need to work at policy level to include vocational training and skill development to improve the employment opportunities of youth. And lastly, we will discuss the skill level factors behind unemployment. The first one is job specific skills. Many job seekers lack the specific skills required by the employer, and the education system often fails to equip individuals with relevant skills. And the India Skills Report of 2023 says that only 50% of the youth who are being graduated are employable in India, and the other 50% does not fit to the employment criteria of industries, which creates a huge problem of unemployment among the educated youth. The second one is skill industry mismatch. There is often a gap between the skills acquired by individuals and the need of various industries, and this disconnect hampers the job prospects and results into unemployment. For example, with the increasing demand of digital skills, industries like e-commerce, data analytics may face a shortage of qualified candidates. And lastly, technology and automation. The advancement in technology and automation have led to the replacement of manual labor in certain sectors. For example, with the coming of artificial intelligence, certain jobs are displaced, which requires repetitive and routine tasks. And to quote a specific example, you can write that automation in manufacturing process reduces the need for manual assembly line workers. We have discussed the reasons under three broad headings. The first one was structural, and the second was policy level, and the third was skill level. Whenever you write the mains answers, try to frame your answers in such a structured manner. Now we will discuss the roadmap to generate jobs in India. The first one is we need to promote industry relevant skills. We need to focus on enhancing the skills of workforce through vocational training programs. We can collaborate with educational institutions, industry experts, and employers to design a skill development initiative that align with the market demands. The second one is revamp the education system. We need to make it more industry oriented. And in this regard, the new education policy of 2020 is a welcome step as it focuses on promoting the research and development which can create new job opportunities. The third one is we need to focus on labor intensive sectors such as leather, auto components, infrastructure development, and renewable energy. There is a need to provide incentives and subsidies to attract investments in these sectors. The fourth one is support to small and medium enterprises. There is a need to create an enabling environment for their growth by simplifying regulations, providing access to credit, facilitating technology adoption, and offering business development support. The fifth one is foster public private partnerships. We need to encourage collaboration between government, private sector, and civil society organizations to create more job opportunities. And the public private partnerships can be formed to implement large scale infrastructure projects, skill development initiatives, and employment programs. The next one is rural development and agriculture sector. As we have discussed, there is a large chunk of labor force who is engaged in agriculture sector, so there is a need to focus on this particular area. Government needs to invest in infrastructure and modern farming techniques to bring prosperity in rural and agriculture sector. Further, there is a need to streamline the implementation of labor codes to facilitate the ease of doing business in the country. The next one is infrastructure. We need to develop a robust infrastructure which includes transportation, logistics, power, and telecommunication. Moreover, the infrastructure sector not only creates jobs directly but also attracts investments and boosts the other economic activities. And government is focusing on this particular area through different programs, and one of them is PM Gati Shakti. Further, we need to promote digitization and e-commerce as it can open up new avenues for employment such as online marketplaces, e-commerce logistics, digital services, and remote work opportunities. And lastly, there is a need for continuous monitoring and evaluation. We need to establish mechanisms to monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of employment generation activities. We need to regularly assess the impact of policies and programs to make data driven adjustments and ensure the optimal resource allocation. In this way, we can create more jobs in the country to fulfill the needs of citizens and economy. A quick recap to our discussion. Firstly, we have discussed the context, its relevance for General Studies Paper 3. We have seen the previous year mains question and the prelims questions. Then we discussed about periodic labor force survey and the methods which are used for the estimation of employment and unemployment. After that, we have briefly discussed the key findings of PLFS report of 2022, and then we discussed the reasons behind unemployment, and we focused on three broad areas. The first is structural factors, second is policy level factors, and the third is skill level factors. And after that, we have discussed the roadmap to generate jobs in India. After discussing the employment topic in detail, I hope that you will be able to write a decent answer on these questions. Moving on to the next topic, which is based on this news, which featured at page number 12 in The Hindu. And the context is that the government proposed market scheme which seeks to foster sustainable living by offering incentives for range of activities such as afforestation, water conservation, and waste management. And this will be achieved by generating green credits as a means of encouragement. And the term green credit refers to a financial concept that encourages and supports environment friendly projects and activities. It is a way for banks and financial institutions to promote sustainability and reduce the negative impact on environment. In today's discussion, we will try to cover the green credit scheme in detail. And this topic is relevant for General Studies Paper 3 under Environment section. Before moving on to the discussion, let us have a look at this question which appeared in 2016. And it says, which of the following best describe the aim of Green India mission of Government of India? In this question, you have been given three statements and you need to identify the correct statement out of these. The first statement says, incorporating environmental benefits and costs into union and state budgets, thereby implementing the green accounting. It is an incorrect statement. It has nothing to do with the union and state budgets. The second statement says, launching the second green revolution to enhance agricultural output so as to ensure food security to one and all in the future. It is again an incorrect statement, as this scheme, Green India Mission, focuses to enhance the forest cover in the country. And the third statement says, restoring and enhancing the forest cover and responding to climate change by combination of adaptation and mitigation measures. It is a correct statement, as the aim of the Green India Mission is to restore and enhance the forest cover in the country. And the correct answer to this question becomes C, which is 3 only. After discussing this question, we realized the importance of environmental schemes for UPSC Civil Services exam. Now we will discuss about the Green Credit Scheme. It is a scheme by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and the ministry has issued draft rules of 2023 under Environment Protection Act of 1986 to integrate environmental conservation with economic incentives. So, it is the basic idea behind the Green Credit Scheme. And this draft proposes the generation and trading of green credits, which is a key component under Mission Life initiative. And this Mission Life is a mass movement of environment conscious lifestyle. And Prime Minister of India has introduced the Mission Life at 26th UN Climate Conference in Glasgow. And he also said what is needed today is mindful and deliberate utilization instead of mindless and destructive consumption. You can use these quotes if a question on environment conservation appears in the mains exam. Now we will discuss the areas which will be part of this credit scheme. And these includes tree plantation, water, sustainable agriculture, waste management, air pollution reduction, mangrove conservation and restoration, eco-mark, sustainable building and infrastructure. Let us shift our focus to the highlights of the scheme. The first one is generating green credits for environmental actions. Individuals and organizations can generate green credits by actively participating in various activities. And these activities include afforestation programs, water conservation efforts, and waste management. Further, by engaging in these activities, individuals do not only contribute to environment sustainability but also earn credits that can be traded for monetary value. The second is a market-based approach. It adopts a competitive market-based approach aiming to motivate not only the individuals but also the private sector entities to fulfill their environmental obligations and acquire green credits. The third one, creating demand for green credits. To ensure the effectiveness of green credit scheme, government plans to enact law or regulation that incentivize companies and organizations to purchase green credits for trading. The next one is diverse sectors for green credit generation. The draft identifies 8 sectors which we have discussed here for green credit generation, and each of them plays a vital role in environment sustainability. The next one is special provisions for conservation and restoration. The draft also includes specific provisions for mangrove conservation and restoration. And from this particular point, we get to know that Green Credit Scheme has a provision which includes mangrove restoration and conservation. It can be helpful for prelims exam also. The next one is establishing trading platform. The establishment and operation of the trading platform for green credits will be guided by the directions issued by the Green Credits Administrator with the approval of Steering Committee. The next one is incentivizing individual and community actions. One of the major highlights of the draft notification is the inclusion of regulatory provisions to account for individual and community actions alongside corporate and business actions. And it aims to incentivize and reward individual efforts towards environment conservation. And lastly, the phased implementation. This mechanism will be implemented in phases, and initially 2-3 activities from the 8 sectors are being considered for the pilot project. And finally, the proposed green credit scheme, which is introduced by Environment Ministry, represents a significant step towards promoting sustainable living. By incentivizing a range of activities through the generation and trading of green credits, the government aims to encourage individuals, community, and private sector entities to actively participate in environmental activities. And in this way, it becomes a collaboration between individuals, communities, and private sector to make the environment sustainable and clean. And to conclude the discussion of this particular topic, we have a mains practice question for you. And it says, the Green Credit Scheme initiative, which aims to encourage climate conscious action from all stakeholders to collectively reduce carbon footprints, discuss. You need to answer this question in 150 words. Now we will discuss one case study from 2019 General Studies paper 4. First of all, we will try to understand the case study and the demand of the question which was asked. And it says, in a modern democratic polity, there is a concept of political executive and permanent executive. Elected people's representatives form the political executive and bureaucracy forms the permanent executive. Ministers frame policy decisions and bureaucrats execute these. In the initial decades after independence, relationship between permanent executive and political executive were characterized by mutual understanding, respect, and cooperation without encroaching upon each other's domain. However, in subsequent decades, the situation has changed. There are instances of political executive insisting upon the permanent executive to follow its agenda. Respect for and appreciation of upright bureaucrats has declined. There is an increasing tendency among the political executive to get involved in routine administrative work such as transfers and postings. Under this scenario, there is a definitive trend towards politicization of bureaucracy, and the rising materialism and accusativeness in social life has also adversely impacted upon the ethical values of both permanent and political executive. And the question says, what are the consequences of this politicization of bureaucracy? You need to discuss. And the word limit to this case study is 250 words. Whenever you come across the case study, read it properly to understand the key concerns mentioned in the case study. It is a direct and straightforward question. Let us try to discuss that. The consequences of politicization of bureaucracy. The first one is, it can lead to lack of accountability and transparency in decision making. Bureaucrats may be forced to follow the agenda of political executive even if it is not in the best interest of the organization or public, and it can lead to a culture of fear and discourage bureaucrats from taking decisions that are in the best interest of the organization. It can lead to lack of professionalism and expertise. Bureaucrats may be appointed based on their political affiliations rather than their qualifications and experience, which can lead to lack of competence and efficiency in bureaucracy, and eventually it will weaken the public administration. Further, it can lead to lack of continuity and stability, as bureaucrats may be transferred frequently based on the political considerations rather than their performance. And in such scenario, the competent officers may not be given important positions which are crucial for the governance of the district or a state. Further, it can lead to lack of public trust and confidence in bureaucracy. The public may perceive bureaucracy as being corrupt and inefficient, and which can further lead to lack of trust and confidence in the government of the day. And lastly, the loss of impartiality. Bureaucracies are designed to be impartial and provide neutral, expertise-based advice to the policy makers. However, when they become politicized, officials may prioritize political interests over objective decision making, and this can undermine the credibility and integrity of bureaucracy. Hence, it can be concluded that to prevent politicization of bureaucracy, we need to promote a culture of professionalism, expertise, accountability, and transparency. In this way, you can conclude your answer to this particular case study. Every day, we are trying to come up with a case study to enhance your understanding for the General Studies Paper 4. The last topic of today's discussion is based on this news, which featured at page number 12 in The Hindu. It basically talks about the National Organ and Tissue Transplantation Organization, which is famously known as NATO. And the context is that the National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization has issued a warning against the private websites and social media posts which are promoting and offering the organs for trade. And the online promotion was in violation of the provisions of Transplantation of Human Organs and Tissues Act 1994. This topic is important for General Studies Paper 3, under which biotechnology is a section. Before moving on to the Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization, let us see the status of organ trade in India. As of now, there is not much data available regarding those whose organs are removed and the long-term effects on them. And WHO report has said that India is the largest exporter of human organs internationally, and there is no doubt majority of them fall under illegal organ trading. Today we will be discussing the key facts associated with this particular organization. The National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization is a national level organization which is set up under the Directorate General of Health Services, and it comes under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And it has two divisions. The first one is National Human Organ and Tissue Removal and Storage Network, and the other one is National Biomaterial Center. Now we will briefly discuss these two divisions. National Human Organ and Tissue Removal and Storage Network. This has been mandated as per the Transplantation of Human Organs Amendment Act 2011. And this network will be established initially for Delhi and gradually will be expanded to other states and regions of the country. What are the functions and activities of this division? The National Network Division of NATO would function as the apex center for all India activities of coordination and networking for procurement and distribution of organs and tissues. And it also includes registry of organs, tissue donations and transplantation in the country. Hence, this is the major function of this particular organization. The second organization is National Biomaterial Center. It is also named as National Tissue Bank. Try to remember this particular information as sometimes UPSC asks random organizations in prelims exam. The Transplantation of Human Organs Act 2011 has included the component of tissue donation and registration of tissue banks. The main thrust and objective of establishing the center is to fill up the gap between demand and supply as well as quality assurance in the availability of various tissues. We have briefly discussed the NATO and its two divisions. Let us have a look at the legal framework in India for mitigation of organ trade. And the name of the act is the Transplantation of Human Organs and Tissues Act 1994. It provides for regulation of removal, storage and transplantation of human organs and tissues. And it also deals with the prevention of commercial dealings in human organs and tissues. Section 18 and 22 of this act deals with the punishment of offences in the context of contraventions to the provisions of the act. That's all for today's discussion. Thank you for watching today's DNS. Stay tuned for upcoming sessions which will enhance your preparation for the UPSC Civil Services exam.